A boy struggling with drug addiction, a child suffering from PTSD, and teen cousins thrust into inappropriate scenarios. These are just a few of the TV roles that were way too mature for the actors who played them. Kiernan Shipka was only 7 years old when Mad Men started airing, but it wasn't actually her on-screen debut. In fact, she was already a seasoned performer as she already had years of commercials under her belt. It was the perfect blend of talent and experience, which is why she made Sally Draper one of Mad Men's most iconic characters. But before Shipka's range and depth became obvious enough to get her promoted to a series regular, her character existed partly to emphasize just how lax 60s parenting could be. For one, Sally gets lessons in mixing cocktails, especially her dad's beloved Old Fashions. She also runs through the house playing spaceman with her mom's dry cleaning bag over her head. This prompted a rare moment of parental intervention.
If the clothes from that dry cleaning bag are on the floor of my closet, you're going to be a very sorry young lady.
When MTV started airing Skins, an American remake of a British show, the outrage was immediate and unsurprising. It wasn't just that the show, like its predecessor, spotlighted teen turmoil and excess, it's that it did so while starring so many fresh young faces. Its cast was carefully chosen to be ages 15 through 19 only. Popular high school soap operas like Gossip Girl have generally cast much older actors. That said, accurate youth casting was more often reserved for family-friendly shows. Then along came Skins, which was anything but family-friendly. In fact, the show was rated TVMA, meaning most of its actors were technically advised not to watch it. Pairing adult material with teen actors not only generated enough controversy to make advertisers eventually pull out, it also stirred up network concerns about being legally charged over the provocative content they were making. Interestingly, Skins went further than just having real teenagers in on-screen sexual situations. It had teens elsewhere in the production too. The writer's room had 30 official teen consultants to help make the show a real portrait of high school's darker follies. The show didn't have long to make its case for realism, though. Between the outcry and its low ratings, it never made it to season 2. Holly Taylor played Paige Jennings on The Americans, the daughter of Russian spies embedded in 1980s suburban America. In order to embody the role, Taylor needed to become a powerhouse performer, and she did. As Paige got drawn into her parents' world of secrets and lies, Taylor had to take her character to some dark, shattering places. It was a lot to ask of a performer who was only 13 when she started on the show. However, what the show asked of Taylor was emotionally exhausting. There was a stretch of episodes where it felt like all she did was cry, and that drained her. But as she told The Observer, the crying wasn't as demanding as the sheer complexity of adult emotions she had to summon to play a girl whose whole life has been turned upside down. Iain Armitage first rose to internet fame doing YouTube reviews of live theater. That background in criticism, in separating fiction from truth, probably turned out to be especially good training for Armitage. His role as Ziggy Chapman on HBO's Big Little Lies required a sophisticated understanding of appearance versus reality that a lot of young actors couldn't have mastered. And given some of the dark places the series goes to, not having that understanding could have had high stakes. Throughout the show's first season, Armitage had to play Ziggy with real ambiguity. A large part of the plot centers on accusations that Ziggy has been biting a little girl in his class, and the audience has to wonder whether or not he's capable of those kinds of outbursts of unsettling violence.
Someone is biting our daughter!
In season 2, Ziggy also has to face the knowledge that he was conceived through rape. Luckily, Armitage seems to have a firm grasp on the boundaries of his part. He told the New York Times, "Movies is basically just playing, but bigger and with people watching." A regular on The Shield, Autumn Chiklis played Cassidy, the daughter of the show's compelling and often terrifying anti-hero Vic Mackey. Vic Mackey was portrayed by Michael Chiklis, Autumn's real-life father. Her role sometimes dipped into disturbing territory, especially as Cassidy grew a little older and had to confront some of the fallout of her dad's dirty dealings. Meanwhile, Autumn's parents had strong feelings about her being on the show. She told The Hollywood Reporter years later, "I was on The Shield and I was not allowed to watch it all 6 years because they did not want me to see him in that light." Thankfully, there was no danger of Autumn confusing her father and his character. She went on to add, "I'm deeply close with my dad. He's my best friend in the entire world." The Wire's gritty, unsparing look at the realities of the war on drugs means that pretty much none of the children who rotate through its cast get out unscathed. This was especially the case in the 4th season with a character named Daquan Dookie Weems. Dookie was played by 12-year-old Jermaine Crawford. Dookie's life is marred by bullying and pervasive neglect, and even the attention and help he gets from new teacher Mr. Perez can't ultimately pull him out of his downward spiral. He's a sweet kid with loyal friends and genuine talent, but in the grim social order of The Wire, he's still doomed. The young Crawford had to show Dookie's gradual descent into homelessness and heroin use. His performance is heartbreaking, and Crawford's obvious youth only emphasizes how much Dookie's life is being wasted. One of the ultimate compliments on his tragic performance is that even as Dookie's childhood is stripped away from him, Crawford portrays him with such an essential innocence that viewers never see him as hardened or even an old soul. Deadwood is Bree Shauna Wall's only screen credit, and when you look at her part, it's easy to imagine how the budding actor might have been scared off. She plays Sophia Metz, a Norwegian girl who is orphaned after an attack on her parents' wagon train. As a result of witnessing her parents' slaughter, Sophia retreats into terrified muteness. It didn't exactly help that Ian McShane's character, the local kingpin Al Swearingen, then spent much of the show's first season debating whether or not to have the child killed as part of a cover-up. It's probably good that Sophia spent so much time either not talking or unable to speak English, because otherwise, a lot of her dialogue would have been heartbreaking. Few actors can provide as much terrifying, perversely genial menace as Ian McShane, and having him loom threateningly over little Sophia is enough to strike fear into our hearts, let alone walls. Dysfunction is the bread and butter of The Mick, the Fox comedy about an irresponsible slacker who gets unexpectedly saddled with caring for her wealthy niece and nephews when their parents go on the run from the FBI. The show's comedic masterpiece is arguably Ben, played by Jack Stanton.
Can you at least put the leash back on?
Why do you want the leash?
I don't know. I just like it.
Ben is as sweet and innocent as any kid could possibly be, and there was nothing the Mick liked better than having him stumble into R-rated situations. It's worse because they're all bad decisions and mishaps easily accessible to most children his age. We have to feel for Stanton's poor parents, who have to try to explain why their young son shouldn't lick a hibachi grill, gobble up birth control pills, and so on and so on. It's the kind of part that cries out for an actor old enough to easily differentiate between fiction and reality. FX's Kentucky Crime series, Justified, rarely required the casting of child actors, which makes it even more impressive that they wound up with such a standout. In Season 2, it introduced Kaitlyn Dever's Loretta McCready, a practical, enterprising, and vulnerable teenage girl whose life gets tragically caught up in the crime empire run by Mags Bennett. After Mags kills Loretta's father, she winds up taking her in, encouraging her to think of the Bennetts as her family. Dever's tenure on the show required her to play heartbreak and betrayal as Loretta runs an unbelievable gamut of emotions until she hardens enough to start the work of becoming a criminal queenpin in her own right. Dever was only a young teen when she started playing Loretta, and she wound up being one of the emotional linchpins of what many critics regard as the show's best season. Her high-octane emotions in that part helped lead her to her role in the film Short Term 12, where she played a troubled girl in a group home. After multiple dramas specializing in girls who had to grow up too fast, it was probably refreshing for her to land the part in 2019's Booksmart, a comedy where her character is finally an ordinary high school girl dealing with ordinary milestones.
It was the best shoot I've ever been on.
HBO's Rome is equal parts tragedy and romped, fueled by violence, raw sexuality, and political gamesmanship that often involves all of the above. And in the middle of all that is a child. We're talking about the young Octavian, the eventual Caesar Augustus, who's first played by 16-year-old Max Pirkis. Octavian looks harmless, but the show quickly reveals that he has a natural talent for political scheming. But Pirkis was asked to do more than just show Octavian playing all the angles. Rome often leaned on the squirmy dissonance it could provoke in its viewers when ancient Rome's different and sometimes appalling norms, including slavery, animal sacrifice, and sexual assault, were put on screen. And few were better vehicles for that than Octavian, who even before the show's time skip aged him up, had slept with his sister, been ordered to visit a brothel, and been extravagantly praised for having the foresight to seduce his uncle. Being a sitcom about a family never made Arrested Development a family sitcom. One of the ways the show liked to gleefully emphasize that was by repeatedly teasing the possibility of incest between cousins George Michael Bluth, played by Michael Cera, and Maybe Funke, played by Alia Shawkat. Shawkat was only 14 when the show started airing, and Cera was 15. While they were old enough to probably have a sense of humor about their characters' will-they-won't-they arc, it's still odd when you think about the show repeatedly making jokes about how they might wind up doing some taboo-breaking kissing. Arrested Development was adept at testing boundaries in the name of comedy, so it smartly used Cera and Shawkat's youth as another barrier to nudge to get laughs. While Millie Bobby Brown's role as Eleven on Stranger Things is demanding, most of its ups and downs involve things like hitting the limits of her telekinetic powers or needing to hide from sinister government agents. They're the kind of dangers that are separated from reality by a few degrees, and that can be enough to make them fun instead of harrowing. But while Eleven gradually embraces her powers, the show starts with her in a low and heartbreaking place, one that really hurts. She's playing an abused, terrified, and dehumanized child whose early emotional support comes only from Matthew Modine's sadistic Dr. Brenner, the man she's been taught to call Papa. Her screaming and asking him for help during horrific experiments is a painful and familiar echo of ordinary child abuse. The most adult thing Brown has had to tackle, however, has just been the extreme stardom, which has opened her up to a barrage of internet trolling and tabloid criticism. Brown has had remarkable grace in handling it, however. The actor told Harper's Bazaar, "Internet trolls have never bothered me. I honestly actually feel really bad for them because who knows what they're going through."